This is Brooke Palmer, and this is my lesson plan. So that's Pechakucha. So for my lesson plan, I wanted to focus on walls and border studies. So this lesson is designed for 8th grade history class, students around 14 to 15 years of age. It is focused around world studies and the appreciation and acceptance of other cultures different than one's own. In my opinion, it is better to accept and love cultures than to just tolerate them and put up with them. So for my essential question, I had a tough time figuring out one for this specific subject, but I figured one out. I wanted to ask, why do people feel the need to separate themselves? For that, my guiding question was also, which people have put up walls to separate themselves, and why did they do this? The answer I came up with was people put walls up because they are scared or afraid of the unknown. They typically put walls up to keep people in or out of a country, a city, or a place. So, objectives. The objectives of this lesson vary. So the students will learn history about walls and borders throughout the world over hundreds of thousands of years, learn about what laws and rules are put in place to keep these borders around. They'll learn to appreciate and accept other cultures that differ from their own, and they're also going to learn how to work well with their peers, divide the work evenly, and how to present in a well manner. As far as standards go for 5th through 8th, I found a lot of them. I found that the benchmark standard for this one was to compare and contrast the contributions of civilization to the Western Hemisphere, as well as the early civilizations in the Eastern Hemisphere. So this kind of just talks about some of the walls that are in place out there. Aztecs and Mayans have walls put in place, or had walls put in place to keep others out, as well as the Egyptians. Lots of people kept the Jews out of Germany. It goes back hundreds of years. So in this lesson that we're going to talk about is put in place to talk about walls and how and why they are used today, as well as throughout history. The students will describe various walls and share specific information about one wall to the others in small groups where the work is divided evenly amongst each other. So for my procedure, I or the teacher will introduce the topic by talking about borders and what the students know about them. I'll explain that borders are in place to keep people in or out. These walls are put in place coming out of areas of fear and the unknown. I talk to them about past history lessons where people did something to keep others out. I'll show them examples of walls and what many of them are made out of. After that, I'll split them up into groups and assign them certain walls or instances of walls that kept people in or out. They can do their research for a few days in class, and on the final day, presentations will happen. They'll take down notes in their journals and then turn the notes back in for credit at the end of the class. So these are some of the examples that I'll show them. When I'm showing them and talking to them about borders and walls, I'll show them borders and walls throughout history. For example, the one on the left is going to be the Berlin Wall. I think that symbolizes all of the Jews being kept out. And then the one on the right is going to be the Mexican border, where it talks about many of the people that have died from people being violent at the border, from just malnutrition, things like that. I'll show them other examples of walls too, like the Great Wall of China that's still in place today, and various others. As far as time goes, this lesson can be extended for a whole week, or it can even be just turned into a one-day kind of presentation, where they can, for a week, they can go to the library, if there is a library in the school, and do their research there, or look it up online. But if you wanted to focus on doing a shorter project where everybody was assigned one wall and they looked it up on their own in a book, this lesson can take maybe 1 to 2 days. For groups go, I, the teacher, will be dividing everybody up into them. You could either, if you wanted to, let people pick their own, but if not, if the class is a little rowdy, you can just assign people by their tables. There can be around 4 to 5 groups depending on the class and depending on how many examples the teacher can think of. So for the research, the students will be split up into small groups where every one of them will be assigned a specific border or wall. So it could be the Berlin Wall, the Great Wall of China, the Mexican border, various others. They'll divide the work evenly and collaborate with one another. Once all of this information is researched and discovered, they will come up with a presentation they can do and present it to the whole class. This is an example of one way that they can brainstorm. They could put wall in the middle of the paper here and just kind of split it off into different categories about what they think of walls, or maybe countries or cities that they've seen walls. As far as discussion goes, this is going to be the presentations. So the class can go around after the presentations and they can ask any questions that they may worry or want any clarification on their notes. The teacher can also fill in any information that they feel that the students might have missed, or just that other areas that could have been touched on. For the assessment goes, maybe not a test per se, but a way just to test their knowledge. Students will be turning in their journals at the end of the lessons that they'll have to take notes on. The teacher could even get notes that they have online and then just fill in the blanks on them, or the students could make their own notes, completely up to them. As far as connecting this to the real world, I feel like it is very relatable for students in New Mexico. I know when I was in high school, I visited the Mexican border, and it really was a sight to see. It took me back and made me a little emotional. But this can relate to so many students here in New Mexico. A lot of families actually come from Mexico themselves, or different countries around the world, as Mexico is our bordering country. They don't even have to be from Mexico per se. There could be students from Egypt, Europe, Canada, just different places throughout the world. Everybody did immigrate from somewhere to America at one point or another, so America is a melting pot full of various cultures, so it should be continued that other cultures are allowed to come in here. Differentiation. So this lesson can be adapted and changed in many ways. As far as younger students go, they can focus on what a border is and how you can go around arranging it. For the older students, they can write a research report on the different borders and laws put in place. They can even give their opinion if they want to, but they won't be judged or graded on the opinion, just the content and the grammar of the papers. For different students, they can incorporate anything that the older students are doing, and they can even do various different presentations or do a book report. And then for some of the special ed students, you can focus on what a border is and what it is meant to do. You can show them a video about borders throughout history, or show them pictures. As far as differentiation continued, this lesson can be used in an English class as well. This one can just be focused mostly on the paper instead of what it is and what it does and what it looks like. It could be research papers about it throughout time, and it could be focused on laws put on our Constitution and put throughout society. So for Bloom's taxonomy, the students will need to think higher than just the surface level about these walls. Having them think of this and the why instead of what it is and what it does is a better way to understand everything. Understanding the why instead of what's in place is very important. For Bloom's taxonomy, there's create, evaluate, analyze, apply, understand, and remember. All of these can be used for create. You'll be creating a presentation. Evaluating, you'll be listening to your fellow students. Analyzing and applying, you'll translate that into your presentation. Understanding, we'll understand why people put borders up and then how and what can be changed. And then for remembering, this can be with the assessment as far as their journals and maybe just having an in-class discussion. For multimedia and integration, I will incorporate my own presentation, online resources, as well as many books. I'll give my students large pieces of paper that they can brainstorm on, and they can go from there. They will also use note cards throughout the class, visual representations. If they wanted, they can draw their own borders and think of ways that you could tear them down, theoretically or hypothetically speaking. If there's any questions, feel free to send me an email, talk to me about them, and thank you for listening to my TED Talk.